Katie Halper is on WBAI. She's in New York. She's also part of Babes for Bernie, and a super solid progressive and a friend of the show. Katie, welcome to the Young Turks.
Thank you. Great to be back.
All right. Yeah, great to have you. All right, let's keep it real. It looks like Bernie lost and might have lost badly in New York. Are you depressed? You say he's still got a shot. Where are you at?
I think he still has a shot. I'm not ready to throw in the towel yet, but I do think it was very interesting that Hillary Clinton seemed to have confused where she won tonight when she said there's no place like home. I was like, oh, does she think she just won in Illinois or Arkansas? Because no one believes that New York is her home.
Yeah.
And I say that as a third generation native New Yorker.
Okay, so but Katie, let me ask you about that. I hear you, and she's a carpetbagger through and through. It's one of the most obvious things ever. On the other hand, there's been some Kennedys who were great statesmen,
Sure,
who were also carpetbaggers in New York. Okay, so now having said that, are you surprised by the size of her win in New York? Were you? I imagine you were a lot more hopeful about your home state, your actual home state.
Right, not Hillary's. Yeah, I was. I mean, I thought the turnout would be better, although we don't know totally, right, what happened yet. And we have to wait and see. And also, of course, a lot of his voters are going to vote later than her voters because her voters are older, and so they go to the polls earlier and then, do the early bird special afterwards or whatever. Just kidding, not being ageist at all. But we do have to see what happens.
Kidding,
and there has been a little ageist. All right. Well, I can do that because Bernie's been fielding some ageism. So it's like reparations.
Okay, that's okay. That's a unique argument, but I like it. And we're allowed to be ageist on the Young Turks. There's the word "young" is.
It is called the Young Turks.
Yes, that's right. So, where do you think Bernie goes from here?
All the way to the convention.
Yes.
Till June. I mean, I don't really want to quote Hillary Clinton when she referred to the assassination of RFK. I don't know if you guys remember that moment. That was really great. One of her best moments. But as she said, her husband didn't get the nomination until June in California. And then she reminded people that June was also when Bobby Kennedy had been killed. Which I still can't believe that people you guys were talking about people who wanted her to win in 2008. And I'm still kind of incredulous that there were people who supported Obama then and are now supporting Hillary, because I mean, I was into Obama basically after the Jeremiah Wright bashing. That's what pushed me over the edge. But I do think it's weird that people who supported Obama are ready to support Hillary Clinton when she was so vicious towards him.
Yeah, I think people have forgotten that almost entirely.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. And you're right. There were moments there when Bill Clinton was, I believe, in West Virginia, and he talked about, you guys should be the ones deciding the elections.
Right,
referring
people
to
like
white
you.
Voters.
Because of people like you. She won because of people like you.
Right.
He compared Obama to Jesse Jackson when he was asked why they won in South Carolina, which actually did shift. Like you were talking about black leaders, black politicians shifting support. Some of them left at that moment. And it was fascinating because, of course, then Bill Clinton was asked on the radio if he regretted making those comments comparing Clinton to Jesse Jackson. And he said, no, they played the race card on me. And then he was asked about those comments and he said, to whom did I say that? And when did I say that? And they were like, oh, on the radio the other day. He's like, no. And he did this thing that Hillary does too. They do this thing. It's like a Clinton.
Yes.
I don't know if they go to bed and wake up in the morning doing it to remember how to do it, or it's their greeting or something. But basically when they're confronted with an inconsistency or a lie or something unseemly, like, supporting fossil fuels, like what happened with the Greenpeace activist, they just turn it around and point and accuse the other person of lying or their opponent of lying.
Or maybe saying, I did not sleep with that woman.
Exactly, right.
I think I remember that at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and by the way, in case you guys have forgotten, Hillary Clinton's team is the one that put out the picture of Obama in the so-called Muslim garb with the turban on.
They just wanted to show how cosmopolitan and multicultural he is.
Fashionable.
And then
Clearly.
when asked about it, they said, what? We wanted to show him in his native Kenyan outfit. Why is he embarrassed by that? So that was not Republicans who did that. That was Hillary Clinton.
Right.
She also, when asked if he was Muslim, said something to the effect of, he says he's not. I take him at his word.
So John McCain was better on that question. It was Arab, not Muslim, and we shouldn't conflate the two. But it is interesting that John McCain was more adamant about Obama not being the thing that was being used to slander him. When he, remember that some woman in the audience said he's an Arab, and John McCain problematically said, no, he's an American or something, as if the two things are incompatible, blah, blah, blah. My point is that he answered that with more certitude than Hillary Clinton did.
Yes, so those things have been forgotten. But so
not tonight, not by Katie Halper.
So Katie, to go back for people not familiar with your position, and you've been very strongly in favor of Bernie Sanders throughout, I understand there's a special place for you. That's what Madeleine Albright tells me. So, but seriously.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Right, of course. There's a special place for, you know where I think it is? There's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. And that's located right next to the special place in hell for women who justify sanctions that kill more children than were killed in Hiroshima bombings. Just hypothetically speaking, and of course I'm referring to, I'm like such an annoying history nerd right now. I'm referring to Madeleine Albright being asked about sanctions against Iraq, which wound up killing lots of kids.
Said it was worth it.
And she said it was worth it. But this is probably the most frustrating argument to me as someone who's been a feminist since literally the age of 5. I mean, I was out as a feminist. I think I used to call it prejudice against women, sexism. That was how I started describing it when I was 5. The idea that I'm supposed to support a candidate because of their gender and then give her a blank check to do whatever she wants and attribute all criticism of her to sexism and double standards is actually incredibly sexist and infantilizing of Hillary Clinton. It also spits in the face of progressive women who are to the left of Hillary Clinton, because how are they able to do that if it's apparently so impossible? And I think there's a middle ground, right? There's a balance, there's a fine line. I think it's not helpful for people to deny that there are double standards in sexism. There are double standards in sexism. But I was joking the other day, I was like, you know what men just don't understand? Catcalls, periods, and having to support coups in Honduras. Am I right?
Katie's pulling out a lot of history tonight. Okay.
I know. I used to teach history.
So
I did actually.
I'm enormously unsurprised by that.
But I would like to ask feminists, mainstream feminists, establishment feminists, who have a late onset, are experiencing some form of late onset hawkishness. I don't know if you've noticed it. For the first time in their lives, they're okay with hawkishness, or for the first time in their lives, they absolutely hate the Pope. This Pope of all popes, I mean, there was a Nazi Pope. Let's prioritize. That's all I'm saying, right? This Pope is pretty good for a Pope.
Yes.
Like they expect him to like perform. He's not progressive unless he like, same-sex marriages people or something and throws fabulous same-sex weddings or, offers the morning after pill with communion or whatever he's supposed to do. But there's just such a lack of honesty. I feel like I'm in the twilight zone as a feminist. I really do.
Yeah. So, recently they brought out the sexist charge against Bernie Sanders supporters for about the 118th time when Hillary Clinton was going to a fundraiser here in LA, and they threw dollar bills at her car, which was $1,000 bills. They were showering her limos, saying like, the only way you're going to pay attention to us is if we pay you. And but are they CNN, MSNBC, everybody trotted out their experts to say that was sexist. Do you think that hurts the cause of sexism by crying wolf?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that it hurts it. I think I really resent having this movement of feminism, which is very important, hijacked and used to support a candidate. And it's not just that she doesn't deserve our support because of her gender. I would argue that her positions are significantly less feminist than Sanders' positions. He's more unapologetically pro-choice. His minimum wage stuff affects women disproportionately. His foreign policy stuff, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to realize that when you're more of a dove, you're actually helping women than when you're a hawk. Mm-hmm. And so it's really weird. It's like this weird jingoistic thing that I didn't think feminists had, but I don't know. It's mind-boggling. I don't want to sound like a reactionary and blame identity politics, but it's like at least be kind of intersectional about it, which that's the weirdest thing to me. Some of these feminists who claim to be intersectional, all of a sudden, like you're not a woman if you don't live in the United States.
Right.
Like they don't care about the policies that affect women outside the United States, for instance.
All right. So one more thing, Katie. So given what appears to be a very strong win for Hillary Clinton tonight, um, what do you do in the general election if Hillary Clinton's a candidate? What's your take on it?
As a New Yorker in New
Sure.
York State, I will vote for Jill Stein, or I'll write in Bernie Sanders. If I lived in a swing state, I would vote for Hillary Clinton. And I don't know, though. Honestly, if her supporters stay as hypocritical and as vicious as they are, and, you know, the Dowists, as I like to call them, the Peter Dow, the Blue Nation Review, I'm just like, their double standards are just atrocious. I can't stand it. It's so dishonest. Like, did you see the woman who wrote this viral Medium post, how I'm becoming anti-Bernie?
Yeah.
I wrote something on this on Raw Story today. Do you know who that woman is, by the way?
No, I
She's
don't.
a
I'm super
corporate
curious.
lawyer
Of course.
who specializes in defending hedge funds. And one of her clients, my favorite, was a nanny abusing Chilean aristocratic jet-setting socialite married couple on the Upper East Side. Now, in all fairness, I understand you're a lawyer, you have to represent your clients, but I mean, am I supposed to be surprised that this woman who literally defends every institution and everything that Bernie Sanders justifiably fights against is not in the tank for Bernie? Like, that's about as damning as Lloyd Blankfein endorsing Hillary Clinton.
So just last thing for me on that piece is, and I didn't get a chance to
Oh,
read
and
the
she
whole
lied.
thing.
Sorry, just to clarify, she also lies. She said that Bernie Sanders pushed his wife. He didn't touch her that time where he told her where to stand. She said he literally pushed her. Like,
No, that's
lady, there's videotape of that. So just tell me, are you lying or are you uninformed? Either way, you're kind of it's a great look for Shilleries.
so. That piece, and we're already spending too much time on it, but like it started promising. I actually thought first she said, "Look, I thought I might be supporting Bernie Sanders."
Right.
Only,
or I liked him. She said she was always leaning Hillary, but she didn't dislike him.
Right.
That article did not read that way, by the way.
No.
It was the greatest hits of anti-Bernie slander.
No, I know. So when she said that in the beginning, I was like, okay, great, open mind.
Sure.
And then as you read into it, you're like, oh no, that was an atrocious lie. She was never considering Bernie Sanders at all. This is a hatchet piece. In the beginning, again, it started promising as she was talking about policy. I was like, great, finally a policy discussion.
And then she gets healthcare stuff wrong. She gets growth wrong. She misrepresents things because she's a lawyer like the Clintons.
And so, but then it turned into he's sexist. I was like, wait, how do we go from a policy discussion to he's sexist and then to put out slander like he pushed his wife?
Oh,
I was
taking
just
off my sweater. I got
outrageous.
But also,
and by the way, the establishment media loved that piece. I got a number of requests like, hey, do you want to respond to this? Because it's so good.
I would love to respond to it. I did today. But the other thing is that she describes his temperament. She's critical about his temperament. She gives it a subheading, a bold subheading, and describes him as becoming red-faced. Can you let's pause and imagine if we talked about Hillary's temperament. Oh, and she said, he seems not to have an inside voice. Let's just pause and imagine if we discuss the tenor of Hillary's voice, her temperament, or the color that her face becomes when she's responding to something.
How would the Taoists react to that?
Just pretend to have it not be totally dictated by double standards. Like, I want to offer a webinar, how to be a better Hillary shill. Because I think I have a lot of insight and a lot of things to offer.
So
There's just certain arguments that fly more than others. Like, don't tell me that they're equally dishonest. You'll just lose that. Justify why Hillary's less honest. You can do that. I would disagree with you, but there's an intellectual honesty and integrity to that argument. And one last thing, sorry. I think that for the first time, there has been red baiting and anti-Semitism. I think that the response to Bernie visiting the Pope was really anti-Semitic, because the implication and takeaway was like, what is this guy doing visiting the Vatican? Clearly, he's like a shyster. He's trying to get Catholic votes. It's exploitative. They never would have said that about Hillary Clinton doing that. And Hakeem Jeffries in New York actually called Bernie a gun-loving socialist. So I would like Hillary Clinton, I know you're watching this. Bernie Sanders has disavowed certain things. Someone got in trouble for saying corporate whores. It was so clearly not about Hillary Clinton. If you analyze what he said, and I was there at the rally, he was actually talking about Congress. But I would like for Hillary Clinton to maybe disavow that red baiting and maybe disavow Henry Kissinger, or maybe apologize for writing him a glowing book review, because there's rhetoric and then there's genocide.
So I just got to
But
say,
call me crazy.
yeah,
Sorry.
I just got to say, I didn't see the anti-Semitism, and I've been waiting for Bernie to unleash that on her, just because her
He won't,
sexism,
though. I don't think he will.
sexism charges are so outrageous that I thought, well, why not be outrageous back, right? Of course, Bernie's never going to do that. I didn't see
Right.
it in the Pope reaction at all. To be like, just
I
that's
did,
my.
and you know me. I'm one of those people you say is like a good Jew. I say that like you discount the rest of us as bad, but I never play the anti. I'm being sarcastic. I'm making fun of myself. It's a Jewish thing, self-deprecating. We're the best at it. Not to brag. Statistically speaking, we are though. But no, I don't. I think that anti-Semitism claims are is almost always being abused, and it's to cover. It's how people deal with legit criticism of Israel. There was I really felt, and I'm never the only person in the room to feel something's anti-Semitic, but I really did feel like there was something dishonest. People were saying there's something dishonest about him going there, or so calculated. First of all, Bernie Sanders is the most Jesus Christ-like of all, not just because he's a Jew, but he is the most Jesus Christ. And I, as a secular Jew, that's not me praising him. Jesus means nothing to me except some genetic thing I guess I have with him. But it is funny that they say we have a savior complex, and they're the ones who are insisting on Hillary's electability in the general, despite evidence. I think they may have the psychological attachment.
Basically.
Yeah, Jimmy, go ahead.
So I just have a few things I wanted to ask you about. So when you say if you were in a swing state, you would vote for Hillary Clinton, and what do you say to the people who say, well, if the neoliberals can count on progressive votes at the general election, what is the pressure that's going to make them switch? What is going to make them stop being neoliberal? And if we vote for neoliberals, we're really supporting corruption. And how do you get rid of corruption if you're voting for it?
Oh, those are good questions. Who was I just reading who said, Bob Scheer. I had Bob Scheer on my radio show, and he said they're not actually neoliberal, they're neoconservatives, which is an interesting way of framing it. About the Clintons. He was talking about the Clintons. I guess, I don't know. I always feel like that's a really hard question to answer because it requires such discipline and long-term thinking.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? I don't mean to be, I'm not trying to dodge the question. I just think that, of course, that kind of thinking is also why we're going to destroy the planet, right? But
yes, so
I do feel guilty about being someone who, I just feel weird about being someone who will not face the most immediate consequences of a Republican victory. Does that make, I feel uncomfortable doing the kind of a won't get better until it gets somewhat worse. And I know that's not entirely your argument, because you're actually saying if they don't think that there's anything at stake, there's no incentive to shift to the left or shift.
Right. So my question is, when do we see people start, instead of saying, hey, when is Bernie supporters going to get on board with Hillary Clinton? When are they going to start saying, when does Hillary Clinton do something to reach out to the progressives in the party? That's what's supposed to happen. And that's what, it's like, she's supposed to earn my vote.
Right. No, I think that's totally true. And the idea that there are these Bernie or bust people, when so many of his supporters are people who wouldn't have voted Democrat anyway. He does have a lot of support among independents. My cousin's husband, someone I know who is not at all left, and he likes Bernie. He hasn't been a Democrat in a while. That's the other thing that people don't realize, that people like to criticize Bernie as being this kind of left-wing equivalent of Donald Trump, which is just absurd because this guy's a major intellectual thinker. I mean, he has although both of them are hilarious, but in different ways. I mean, sometimes it's intentional with Bernie. But yeah, that's the thing that I find really disturbing, is that somehow it's a bad thing to admit that he has appeal to anti-establishment people and appeal that Hillary Clinton doesn't have. You can say that that's messed up, and there's also a lot of sexism that we shouldn't forget about, right? So there are people who will never vote for Hillary.
That's real when you start talking about independents and Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, he has a crossover appeal. He's like Enrique Iglesias or whatever.
Right.
He's the Enrique Iglesias of politics.
All right. On that interesting analogy,
And I can't be the first person to call him that.
I'm pretty sure you are.
Oh, but I just want to take this opportunity really quickly. I would like to offer a challenge to feminists out there. Tell me the way I can criticize Hillary Clinton without being sexist.
All right, that's a good.
Tweet me.
Okay, that's a good challenge to leave it on. Katie Halper, always entertaining and great arguments. Great arguments.
Thank
you,
you.
Katie. Really appreciate it.